people sleeping on the street, mothers giving up meals to feed their children better, pensioners looking for returnable bottles in the trash. It sounds like the scene in an underdeveloped or extremely poor country, like Venezuela or some African country, right? Well, in this case, we're talking about Germany. Did you know that 1 in 6 people living in Germany have an income well below the population average and are living in poverty? It sounds unbelievable, but it's the truth. Today, Bello Mundo will take you to see the other side of Germany, a reality you probably never imagined. And get ready, because what's coming is going to blow your mind. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Germany is right in the heart of Central Europe, surrounded by no less than 9 countries: Denmark, Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria, Switzerland, France, Luxembourg, Belgium, and the Netherlands. This strategic location makes the country an essential connection point on the continent. In the north, the terrain is predominantly flat, with access to the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. It is a region marked by busy ports and extensive agricultural fields. In the south, however, the scenery changes completely. The Bavarian Alps dominate the landscape with imposing mountains, crystal-clear lakes, and picture postcard villages. Between these extremes, the interior is a mix of fertile valleys, dense forests, such as the famous Black Forest, and iconic rivers like the Rhine and Danube, which form landscapes that seem straight out of a fairy tale. And if there's one thing that changes Germany from time to time, it's the seasons. Winter covers the historic cities with snow and brings that air of European romance. Spring colors the fields and flowers bloom everywhere. In summer, parks and beer gardens, the famous beer gardens, are packed. And fall? This paints the forests and valleys in warm shades of orange and yellow, creating breathtaking scenery. Number 2. The Germany the world knows. Germany's traditional image for much of the world is linked to organization, economic success, and a strong cultural identity. We are talking about a country that is a benchmark for high-quality cars, cutting-edge technology, renowned beer, and legendary events such as the Oktoberfest in Munich, where millions of visitors celebrate for weeks on end to the sound of typical music, wearing traditional costumes, drinking generous mugs of beer, and munching on giant pretzels. If a foreigner closes their eyes and imagines Germany, they might see clean, safe cities, impeccably paved streets, punctual public transport, large companies, research centers, and a sense of stability. The country is known for its industrial strength. Brands such as BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, and Siemens are symbols of excellence and innovation. A robust education network and an efficient healthcare system also reinforce the idea of a place where quality of life always seems to be at the forefront. Of course, Germany isn't just about cars, machines, and beer. There's also the rich literary culture of Goethe and Schiller, the classical music of Beethoven, Bach, and Wagner, as well as the fine arts, cinema, and varied gastronomy, not just sausages and sauerkraut, but also haute cuisine in award-winning restaurants. To the world, Germany sells the image of a solid, prosperous, and modern country, a nation that reinvented itself after the tragedies of the 20th century and became one of the engines of the European economy. But Germany isn't just about incredible landscapes, medieval castles, or organized cities. Behind all the efficiency and economic prosperity, there are challenges and social strata that rarely make it into the spotlight. And it's one of these layers that we're going to talk about next: poverty in Germany. Yes, it exists, and what comes next may surprise you. Number 3. History and transformations. To understand the Germany of today, it is essential to know the Germany of yesterday. The country's history is marked by extremes. In the 20th century, Germany experienced a rise, devastating wars, division, and finally, reunification. After the Second World War, the country was in ruins. West Germany, with international support and a lot of internal effort, became an economic powerhouse. Meanwhile, East Germany, under a socialist regime, followed a different path. With the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 came the long-awaited reunification. But despite the promises of unity and equality, the eastern side faced a heavy stigma. To this day, many of its inhabitants are discriminated against and treated as second-class citizens, something we'll see more of later. In the decades that followed, Germany established itself as one of Europe's economic pillars. Employment benefits, quality education, a solid labor market, and a social welfare system helped build the idea that poverty there was almost non-existent. And I said almost non-existent because yes, poverty does exist, and it is increasing. The increase in poverty, which already affects millions of Germans, something hard to imagine in a country seen as one of the engines of the global economy. Number 4. Poverty in Germany. To begin with, it's important to clarify, poverty in Germany is quite different from what we're used to. After all, we're talking about one of the richest countries in the world. But yes, poverty is there, just with very different characteristics. In Germany, the term used is relative poverty. And no, it doesn't mean a lack of food or basic sanitation, as happens in scenarios of absolute misery. Relative poverty is about inequality within a high standard of living. Basically, it's when someone earns less than 60% of the national average income, leaving them unable to maintain the same lifestyle as the majority. Sound abstract? Let's look at the numbers. For a single person, this means living on less than around 1,150 euros net per month. For a couple with 2 children, the limit is around 2,400 euros net. It may seem like a lot to outsiders, but in Germany, where the cost of living is high, that money barely covers the basics. And the impact is real. 1 in 6 Germans is considered poor. This means they struggle to live in safe neighborhoods, buy good quality food, access culture, leisure, and in many cases even keep their homes warm in the harsh European winter. What's more, the situation is only getting worse. In recent years, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Food, energy, housing, everything has become more expensive. Inflation, driven by the energy crisis and the war in Ukraine, has hit family budgets hard. This has pushed even more people into poverty, or the imminent risk of falling into it. Want a shocking statistic? The number of people who depend on food donations or social subsidies has almost doubled in just a few years, jumping from 1 million to more than 2 million. Yes, this is the reality for millions of people in one of the richest and most organized countries in the world. And what follows may surprise you even more. Number 5. Housing. Now that you know the numbers, let's talk about where this reality is reflected. In housing, poverty in Germany is not visible in shacks or makeshift buildings, as in other countries. Here it is hidden inside buildings, in neighborhoods far from prosperity, known as Problemstadtteil or Problemviertel. These names, which translate the idea of problem areas, define places marked by low rents, old buildings, and a concentration of low-income people. These neighborhoods, informally called Brennpunkt, which are social hotspots, are known for facing higher crime associated with drug trafficking and for carrying a heavy social stigma. They are not slums in the visual sense. After all, the buildings have a solid structure and basic sanitation. But the lack of opportunities, unemployment, and discrimination create a cycle of poverty that is difficult to break. And remember that historical prejudice and inequality we mentioned at the beginning about the former East Germany. Well, it's also reflected in housing. Regions like the Ruhr Valley and neighborhoods in Bremerhaven still suffer from a lack of jobs since reunification. While more modern industrial areas are thriving, these places have become stagnant, which has exacerbated social exclusion. These neighborhoods, called benachteiligtes quartier, which means disadvantaged neighborhoods, have low incomes, high unemployment, and few prospects for the future. Even with structured buildings, these places function almost like slums in the social sense, stigmatized, isolated, and without many chances of mobility for their residents. But as difficult as this may seem, there are those who face something even worse: not having a roof over their heads. Number 6. Homeless. Germany is also marked by the existence of homeless people. Although invisible to the casual tourist, the number of homeless people is growing. According to the Federal Association for Aid to the Homeless, known by the acronym BAGW, around 650,000 people live without a fixed abode. Berlin, known for its cosmopolitan and modern style, also bears the bitter title of the country's homeless capital. It is there that the problem is most visible. The scene is stark. People sleeping in train stations, rummaging through trash cans in search of returnable bottles, are scenes that surprise anyone who thinks that everyone in Germany lives comfortably. While some manage to access temporary shelters during the harsh winter, others prefer not to ask for help, either out of shame or disappointment. Number 7. Who are the most affected? That Germany is a country marked by racism and prejudice is indisputable, and this discrimination goes hand in hand with poverty, making the scenario even crueler. People with a foreign background face twice the risk of poverty compared to natives. Identical CVs, but with Turkish or Arabic names, are less likely to secure interviews. Data shows that while only 5% of Germans without a migrant background in full-time employment live below the poverty line, this rate jumps to around 20% among Black, Muslim, or Asian citizens. This is open xenophobia, making it difficult to access good jobs and fair wages. Refugees from Syria, Afghanistan, and other war-torn countries face even greater challenges. With no command of the language and diplomas that are not recognized, many are pushed into low-paid jobs or unemployment. Among Muslim men, for example, the poverty rate can reach 33%. It's a cycle that combines language barriers, prejudice, and exclusion from the labor market, perpetuating poverty. But if you think that only immigrants suffer from this, you're wrong. In Germany, around 14 million people are classified as poor, roughly 1 in 6 inhabitants. And that includes long-time German citizens. Previously prosperous cities now face rising living costs, precarious jobs, and falling purchasing power, affecting even those who were born and raised in the country. Single mothers, for example, face immense challenges in balancing work and childcare. Without family support or accessible daycare centers, many end up stuck in low-paid jobs. Pensioners are also among the most vulnerable. Estimates by the Bertelsmann Foundation indicate that around 20% of pensioners will be in poverty by the year 2036. It's not uncommon to find elderly people rummaging through garbage cans to collect returnable bottles to supplement their income at the end of the month. The problem is even more serious for women who worked part-time and now receive pensions that are insufficient to cover basic expenses. And not even young people escape. Students who depend on BAföG state funding are struggling to get by. The maximum amount of aid is below the poverty line, making the academic period a real struggle. In other words, poverty in Germany doesn't just target immigrants or minorities, it affects the elderly, single mothers, students, and even entire families of native Germans. Number 8. Public policies. As we said before, the German government does offer support, and a lot of it. Germany has one of the most robust welfare states in the world. Programs such as the former Hartz IV, recently replaced by the Bürgergeld, guarantee financial support to unemployed and low-income families. The Bürgergeld offers a basic benefit of approximately €502 per month for single adults. For a family of 2 adults with 2 children, the total amount can reach approximately €1,500. Sounds like good support, right? But not when you compare it to the cost of living in Germany. According to studies, a single person would need at least €1,500 a month to live in dignity. In other words, the benefit only covers about a third of what is needed to maintain a basic standard of living. And with the cost of living skyrocketing, food, energy, rents, much of these benefits are quickly used up. This makes social inclusion a promise that, for many, is still out of reach. Support prevents extreme poverty, but it is not enough to lift millions of Germans out of dependency on the state or offer a real chance to change their lives. And the most worrying thing, this problem shows no signs of ending. In fact, it may have only just begun. Number 9. Uncertain future of the fight against poverty. Inflation remains an implacable enemy. The energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, and changes in the global market continue to put pressure on the German economy. The middle class is shrinking, and more people are being pushed into poverty. The social welfare model, once seen as a fortress, is facing cracks. How do you maintain social support and at the same time sustain a competitive economy? This is Germany's current dilemma. Experts point out that the rising cost of living and internal political tensions make it increasingly difficult to implement effective reforms. Without structural changes, the problem is likely not only to persist, but to worsen, affecting even segments that were previously protected. The future of the fight against poverty in Germany is more than uncertain. It is worrying. And so we end another journey, this time behind the scenes of Germany, a country that hides realities far beyond what the lights of its prosperity show. Now we want to know, what surprised you the most? Was it the harsh reality of the Brennpunkte, the growing numbers of homeless people, or the impact of racism and social inequality? Leave your opinion in the comments. We want to know what you thought of this lesser-known side of Germany. If you like exploring hidden stories and realities that few know about, keep following our Bello Mundo. We still have many fascinating destinations and unexpected truths to discover together. Thanks for sticking with us this far, and we'll see you on our next adventure.